Everybody, and welcome to what should be a really fantastic event. And it's great to see people here. My name's Julian Huppert. I'm the director of the Intellectual Forum here at Jesus College in the University of Cambridge. It's been a huge pleasure to work with the team from CAMFED and the Real Centre, as well as the Yidan Prize Foundation, to create this celebration. And we're going to hear from CAMFED and Real a bit later. It's particularly lovely to have this in person, or at least partially so. We ran the Yidan Conference Series Europe here last March, just before COVID really hit. And so in many ways, for me, these conferences are the positive bookend on each side of what has been a very strange period of time. Now, before I do a proper welcome, there's a few housekeeping notices I need to give for those of you who are here in the room. So we are filming and live streaming this event. So if you are speaking, please do speak into microphones. If you have questions, there'll be a boom mic around, because if not, the people watching and the translators won't be able to hear what you say. Please, of course, make sure your mobile phones are on silent. In the world of Zoom, that was less relevant, but I can't mute you from here. Speaking of noises, we don't have any planned fires, but if there is a fire alarm, please go through the marked doors into the courtyard behind me and not onto the road, because we'd rather you weren't run over by the fire brigade when they come to save the rest of us. Coffee and tea will be served outside in the breaks. Lunch will be just off the foyer in the boarding room and upstairs in the West Court dining room. And if you had a particular meal requirement, that will be ready for you upstairs. Now, all of those notices, I'm afraid, only apply to those of you in the room. If you are watching remotely, then I'm afraid we haven't provided lunch for you. Just because the name of the college is Jesus doesn't mean we can produce wine, loaves and fishes. But wherever you are, you can tweet along with this event, and we'd strongly encourage you to do so and use the hashtag #EquitableFuture. Now, I'm not sure exactly who is watching online, but we do have people I know from the Philippines, Malawi, India, Rwanda, Malaysia, Vietnam, Mozambique and Cambridge. And it's great to have all of you here for a much more global event than we could do if it was just here in the room. But I do need to start off with an apology. The Master of Jesus, Sunita Elaine, was due to be here to welcome you all for this event. And unfortunately, Sunita is unwell and can't be with us. I know how much she was looking forward to this. And so, as well as comparing things, I have to be an entirely inadequate substitute for Sunita. But welcome in person or remotely to Jesus College. We have an extremely long history as a centre of education and scholarship. Originally founded in the 1200s as a nunnery, we became a college in 1496. Having gone from all female, we then became all male, but we did correct that and are now fully coeducational. Our alumni have included many people whose work and thought has transformed the world. From Archbishop Cranmer, who wrote the Book of Common Prayer in 1549, Thomas Malthus, whose 1798 essay on population growth has had so much impact around the world. His contemporary, the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Lisa Jardine, our first female fellow, who was a Renaissance English specialist, but was so highly regarded in scientific circles that she was made a Fellow of the Royal Society, an almost unprecedented honour for a non-scientist. And more recently, we have the band Clean Bandit, who I'm sure you all listen to regularly. They've had 4 #1 hits, and their track Rockabye has had 2.5 billion views on YouTube. Today we're celebrating CAMFED, and in particular Lucy Lake and Angie Muruera, winners of the 2020 Yidan Prize for Education Development. And as you'll see today, if you don't know already, they are very worthy winners. I've had the pleasure personally of knowing CAMFED for many years, since I first met Anne Cotton, who founded CAMFED. It's a truly remarkable organisation. There are many great ideas in education, but few that actually work on such a massive scale, so effectively and so cost efficiently. And the commitment to engaging alumni in running the organisation is also utterly fantastic. Angie is one of the early alumni who has now come back in to run the organisation with Lucy. Now, I had the great privilege of nominating them for the prize and was utterly delighted that they won it, and we can celebrate together like this. Now, we at Jesus have worked with the Yidan Prize Foundation every year since the prize was started, and the annual conferences here in this room have been a huge pleasure to put together. But even before the prize was launched, the visionary behind it, Charles Chen Yidan, came to Jesus College. And I had the pleasure of hearing him speak in a lovely room that used to belong to the prioress of the nunnery hundreds of years ago. Now, I've had involvement in various aspects of education for many years as a politician, an academic, and now doing work to promote evidence in edtech. And a question I always ask people is, for you, what's the purpose of education? And I'm always shocked how many people, education ministers, teachers, all sorts, don't have a good answer. And it always seems to me that if you don't know the purpose, if you have only a slippery understanding of why you're doing it, you can't know if you're doing it well. So when Charles came a few years ago, I asked him this question, and he gave one of the best answers I have ever heard. His vision for the prize is transformative and based on really deep thinking about the subject. And it's always a pleasure to hear his views. Now, sadly, Charles can't be here in person. As we know, there are all sorts of travel constraints. They will come back as a theme through some of what we do today. But Charles has recorded a welcome for us. So it's a great pleasure to welcome onto this fantastic screen behind me the founder of the Yidan Prize, Dr. Charles Chen Yidan.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's wonderful to have an in-person event. I wish I could be with you in Cambridge, but travel difficulties mean I'm joining you online. I look forward to learning from today's distinguished speakers about the future of education. We all believe in the power of education. In Chinese language, the word education is a combination of two characters, jiao and yu, carries the meaning of both to teach and nurture. Gaining knowledge is important, but we also need to help children grow and thrive. Teaching and nurturing work together, and education drives progress in our society. We care about progress in our society because we care about our future generations and the world they will live in. So we need ideas bold enough to change the future, ideas which will work and have sustainable impact. We see these bold ideas in the work of our Yidan Prize laureates, innovation in both research and action on the ground. Thanks to our judging community, led by the former Director General of UNESCO, Dr. Masula, we are shining a spotlight on 11 of these innovations. They are, as we speak, transforming education across Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. Since this journey began in 2016, we have seen the Yidan Prize encourage closer collaboration between research and practice, and be a bridge connecting bold ideas. Since we are focusing on the future, we need to find ways to combine a proven track record with the potential for deep, wider future impact. This is the vision. We established the Council of Luminaries in December last year. 3 major learnings emerge as we reflect on the journey so far, and I'd like to share them with you. First, closer collaboration is key. As we have learned through the work of the Council of Luminaries on how deep impact can be delivered by bringing together education leaders from different disciplines and parts of the world, we can find innovative, transformative, and sustainable solutions for complex education challenges. Secondly, let's take the education question to a deeper level. We know that there are learning losses during the pandemic, with disadvantaged communities being much more affected. This pushes us to think deeply about what more we should be doing now to prepare them for a better future. To answer these questions, we need to know about the means, evidence, and to have wider participation of the global education community. We envision that the network of networks which the Yidan Prize is building will help educators achieve the goal to bring deeper impact to where it matters most, and for a much wider global community to benefit from new insight created through the Council of Luminaries. Finally, education is about the future, and mostly it's about next generations. Unlike quantifiable outcomes, through data analysis, the long-term impact educators have on people and society cannot be easily measured. Yet this subtle but far-reaching influence is the unique charm of educators who constantly nurture and inspire learners and stakeholders through their tremendous personality and values. We are all drawn to this noble cause of education. It's worth giving our greatest effort. I would like to thank the University of Cambridge, Jesus College, the Faculty of Education, and the Rio Center for your support in hosting this conference jointly with our Yidan Prize laureates. Please enjoy the conference. And I'm very much looking forward to meeting you in person soon.
Thank you very much, Charles, and I hope we can be together next year and before that. Now, our next speaker, Dorothy Gordon, is the chair of the UNESCO Information for All programme and head of the judging panel for the Yidan Prize for Education Development. She's well known for her work in international development and technology for over 30 years, making a huge difference, particularly in Africa. Now, Dorothy was due to speak in person and came over to the UK specially for that. But because of a bizarre wrinkle in UK legislation, which says that we only allow you to exempt from self-isolation if you're a contact of a positive case, if your vaccinations were done in the UK, there's something about bioscience I don't fully understand as to why where the jab is affects your biology. We instead have had to bring her in over Zoom. So Dorothy, hopefully Dorothy is going to come up on the screen. Technology is a wonderful thing. If not, yeah, there we are. Dorothy, it's lovely to have you with us. Thank you for being here. Over to you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I can't emphasize how much I wish I could have been with you in the room. I'm truly envious of the opportunity that you have to meet face to face. As the head of the judging panel for the Yidan Prize for Education Development, it really gives me a great pleasure to celebrate the path-breaking work of the Campaign for Female Education, the 2020 Yidan Prize laureates in education development. This is a team that has demonstrated how to take innovation in education to scale. And let me say here that I've come to realize that many of our laureates in education development are truly dedicated to action research. They work in areas where there are no easy solutions, and there are many myths that actually make it more difficult to do good work. The team at CAMFED has broken those myths. the myth that girls are not going to school in Africa because their parents are not interested in allowing them to go to school for various socioeconomic reasons. The CAMFED team has demonstrated that the issue is far more closely linked to poverty, and that with small amounts of support, the scholarships that CAMFED gives to teenage girls, parents are more than happy to allow their children to go to school. And even more than that, it is this area of socio-emotional support that CAMFED has truly introduced what I could say is a revolution, in the sense that they are not relying on externals alone, but they're drawing on a peer network of the girls themselves. Let me explain a little bit more. If we look at what's happening to girls' education today, we realize that as a result of the pandemic, millions more girls have been robbed of their right to education. There are many girls, teenage girls, that have dropped out due to early marriage or early pregnancy, or simply the deepening poverty that has been linked to the pandemic. In all of this, the CAMFED model gives us hope. It gives us hope that with targeted intervention that actually helps the girls to stay in school. We're not talking about huge amounts of money, but small amounts of money that make a huge difference to these girls' lives. And apart from that, we have the peer support that is offered by the CAMFED Association. And I was personally so proud to note that one of our laureates this year, Angie, was actually received support through CAMFED and has now gone on to lead this peer network of young women. As we look to the future, and I was very pleased that Charles reminded us that everything that we do is for a better future. We recognize how appropriate CAMFED's motto is. Well, can I say it's really a reminder to all of us of something that we know, that when you educate a girl, everything changes. And so as we look to, I'm not sure if I can put it this way, as we look to adjusting, let's say, constructing a better future, as we look to constructing a better future, a future that will help those many teenage girls that have been forced out of school to take back their right to education. We can bank on models that have been developed, methods that have been developed through true action research, looking at what works on the ground. And those models and methods that have been developed by CAMFED can help all of us, because I believe that every single one of us in the room and every single one of us listening in on the live stream must truly be a campaigner for girls' education. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dorothy, and I wish you were here in person. I'm so sorry for the, I shouldn't apologise for the British government, that's not my responsibility. And as a final welcome, I'm now delighted to welcome back the former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Cambridge, Chair of Cancer Research UK, and a Director of the Yidan Prize Foundation, Sir Leszek Borisovich, known by everybody here as Boris. Boris, thank you for being with us.
Well, and Julian, thank you very much indeed for the invitation and the privilege of actually joining you here today. Yes, Boris, if you're going to spell it and use it, please spell it with a Y. I want no responsibility for association elsewhere. Now, I'm not sure what rules of this 400-year-old statutes and ordinances of this prestigious university I'm about to break, because as a former Vice-Chancellor, it behoves me actually to welcome you to the University of Cambridge, and I'm sure my successor would wish to echo that, and I hope he does that tonight. It's a real privilege that you're all here today, and ever more so, a privilege in having a symposium on creating an equitable future through education. Just ponder that for a moment, what we're actually saying in the title of this area. It's an equitable future, and it's creating. In other words, we are an active part of making that future equitable, and we want education to be at the forefront of being able to do that. Now, once a year, in this prestigious organization of Jesus College, the language in the prioress room changes. It's a language many of you would not understand, because the prioress room is taken over on the 1st of March by the Cymdeithas Cymraeg of Cambridge to celebrate St David's Day, our patron saint in Wales. And why am I digressing into that? Apocryphally, St David made a particular statement. And I'm paraphrasing. I hope if he's on a cloud, he'll forgive me. If you want big things to happen, look after the little things. And is there an organization that has demonstrated this better than CAMFED? From small beginnings, gradually building and accreting a peer group, as Dorothy has referred to, it is now making an impact, but has never lost its focus on the individual girl that needs the access to education. And through that movement, there is a genuine desire to change the whole world, both for girls, but also for the world of health, for the world of society, and for the world of equitability. Now, I've mostly worked in higher education and health and science, and yes, I work in that alphabet soup of coronavirus sequences and cancer sequences that you see on stage. But for me, the transforming event that has always guided me was during the periods of time I spent working in West Africa on the Senegambia border. When you're there, you begin to see the importance of primary and secondary education in action. You begin to understand what it means that girls of 11 and 12 are having early pregnancies, have lost that area, and then you're asking them to suddenly transform themselves into the 21st century world where we want to project vaccines, we want to project preventative measures in terms of health, we want them to educate their children better. How can they, if they have not received that foundation of education to move forward? And how can they help frame and create a just and equitable society? Because, sorry, those of us with Y chromosomes, let's face it, the double X chromosome has a big part to play in creating those equitable societies. It matters. And those of us who've had, I suppose, the dubious privilege of going and seeing refugee camps, unfortunately so many of them around the world today from areas of conflict, and we look into the eyes of people who see the one thing that education brings. It brings hope for the future. Their passionate belief that education will make the lives of their children better than their own lives is an absolutely passionate belief. And it's a belief that I've certainly come to share, and I know that CAMFED does, and I know that the Yidan Foundation is absolutely determined through the understanding of the science of education, working with those who've actually delivered on the ground. We can make this happen. That is, we can create that equitable future through education. So, Lucy and Angela, thank you very much for what you have done. And in the usual way, as Vice-Chancellor of Cambridge University, thank you for all that you're going to do in the future. And with that, I'll hand over to the more interesting part of the meeting.